What is up, YouTube? Colin here, the Wild CEO. It is that cold in the studio that I'm wearing my jacket still. I gotta say, I love this brand. They have a really cool story Patagonia. You should go to the podcast, How I Built This, I think, by Guy Raz. It's a BBC, and he interviews the founder. Great stuff. So today I'm gonna talk about real quick, like, what is a natural human diet? We just had Michaela Peterson, Jordan Peterson's daughter, on the Ancestral Mind yesterday, and she talked about how she's doing the Lion Diet, which is basically a hybrid of carnivore where she eats only ruminant animals, so basically beef for the most part. She has some major autoimmune issues, so there's reasons why that is. We talk a little bit about the ethics and morality of it, how she tried to introduce other plants, and even then it sent her symptoms spiraling out of control. Really unfortunate, some of the health things she's had to deal with, but through that process she learned, how to really get in touch with her body and like what foods affect her and why they affect her, and how food is really a drug. Food is a drug. Hippocrates said, "Let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food." Okay? Every single day you eat food, it causes a chemical reaction in your body. What happens when you pop a pill? A chemical reaction in your body, right? Your brain, your body, etc. It's the same exact thing, right? So, how can we think about what the natural human diet is? Now, there's a lot of ways to unpack this and think about this, but no morality, no ethics. This is purely what would humans have eaten in nature 10,000 plus years ago when our ancestors lived as nomadic hunter-gatherers, meaning they traveled around, small groups, they shared everything, okay? And they foraged and hunted food local to their environment. So food was always real, it was always raw, and it was processed and consumed by those humans from nature herself, right? So obviously right there you see a first principle that is a stark contrast to our current food system, which is refined, processed, shipped all the way around the world, stored for long periods of time, artificial preservatives and things. Your food is man-made, right? Food from nature, though, is earth-made. One of the first principles of the natural human diet is food is from nature, and it should be from nature. And anytime you, the consumer / eater of food, can go back to nature and get close to nature as possible, the better you're going to be, the better your health is going to be, right? So that's an easy thing for most people to understand. Most people will accept this, right? But then we get into things like, well, how much meat should we eat? How many vegetables or fruits or this or that or whatever? And this idea that vegetables are the best thing to eat it's just not accurate, right? And so I don't want to spend a ton of time on carnivore or plant-based or anything like that, because plants have an integral part in the natural human diet. And nearly every single human observed in the wild, like as hunter-gatherers, every single population we've ever studied shows humans eating plants, okay? Plants are a part of the natural human diet. But plants are not the most optimal way to get nutrition for the human being, and that is a really important distinction. Okay, so first, think about this. Okay, there's a study done that tracked the pesticides consumed by the average person, right? And then comparing it to where those foods are coming from, right? So most people think to buy organic because it's good because it doesn't use pesticides. Well, here's the thing that most people don't understand at the same time. 99%, this study showed, 99% of the pesticides that you and I consume in our everyday standard American diet or whatever we eat come from plants themselves. Not from man that sprayed chemicals on plants, but from the internal chemistry of the plant itself. Plants have natural pesticides that they manufacture because plants are very good chemists, and that's their defense mechanism. When we eat those plants, we ingest those chemicals that are meant to thwart off predators, right? And as a result, it attacks us and we get issues. You ever get that scratchy feeling like this? If you eat maybe peppers, for me sometimes I eat a lot of them, or certain greens or whatever, and you can kind of like itchy throat or other symptoms, and they can manifest in all these different ways. That's your body responding to like histamine or capsaicin or something like that, that it is basically you could say is allergic to, right? Especially in mega doses. Now it comes down to the dose. We can eat plants here and there, and even if we do have slightly allergic reactions, or we're kind of processing some lectins or pesticides, our body can usually process through those and be just fine, right? But that doesn't mean that plants are the best food because they have nutrients and things like that. If you look at pound for pound, plants versus animals, animals have more nutrition pound for pound than plants ever could, right? If you actually compare the amount of calories, for example, in something like a steak versus let's say a bowl of spinach or blueberries. right? If you're living in the wild, you have to survive. You need calories to survive. That's another first principle. You're not going to survive eating leaves and berries. You're just not. One steak has enough nutrition for pounds and pounds and pounds of spinach and blueberries. Eat like tens of, maybe even hundreds of pounds of spinach it would take to get the same calories in one steak. And then imagine an entire animal you killed, right? The amount of calories there. So one of the first principles of human diet and nutrition is humans evolved and grew big brains as a result of eating animals. Without eating animals, humans could not function in the wild. And today, without eating animals, humans don't get necessary B vitamins and other nutrients that are found only in animals, right? Primarily B vitamins is a big one. You can't find B vitamin in the plant kingdom, which means if you don't get B vitamin in your diet, you can die, right? These are things that nobody really talks about when they try to promote plant-based as being the best, or saying that things like veganism is the best, or more moral, or whatever. But again, I'm not really talking about moral here. I'm talking about what is our ancestral past, and how can we think about that to understand how humans are meant to eat. So if you go on Wikipedia right now and type in hunter-gatherer, right? Scroll down, and you'll see a list of hunter-gatherers. I would recommend clicking on a few of those and going to the diet section and reading what those people typically eat, because these are all around the world in different climates with different foods. What you'll find, though, is universally they all eat animals. They all eat nuts and seeds and sometimes tubers and fruit, right? You take someone like the Inuit, which up north, right, you know, the Eskimos, I don't think that's the PC way to call them, but they ate a diet primarily of saturated fat from fatty animals like seals and walruses and things like that they could kill in the wild. And then they ate a little bit of greens from seaweed, and that was it. That was the bulk of their diet. And they had no cavities, pretty much no heart disease, no cancer, nothing like that. That's one example, right? But then you can go to someone like the Kitavans or the Kitavans, which is an island people, I think off the coast of New Zealand. And they ate a diet that was primarily carbs from a starchy tuber. They ate a lot of coconut. They ate fish and fruit, right? I think they tracked it, and about 70% of their calories came from carbs from the starchy yam and tuber. They both did well. They both, as hunter-gatherers, lived optimally and had great health and didn't have any of the modern Western diseases that we have today, right? So that's where you get into things like high carb or slow carb or whatever. Well, if you take the first principle and you wipe all that away, eat real food, have a mix of local, colorful variety, right? Make sure you have your animals, because that's where the base of your nutrition comes from, and then supplement with other natural foods in your environment around that. That is a natural eating plan. Now, to keep this video short, this is just going to be a very quick intro into how to think about this, how to build your first principle for human eating so that you can think about the foods that you're eating every single day and make better decisions, right? If you want to go more into this, more in depth into these topics, I would recommend going over to, I forgot my URL, theancestralmind.com, right? Theancestralmind.com. There'll be a link below, and you can download the 7 PDF. There'll be a link below, and you can download the PDF 7 Principles of Living Wild PDF cheat sheet that you can print out, put on your fridge, whatever. It's going to have the basics of how to live wild from the ancestral perspective. So the first principles of everything that makes a human healthy, and the first one is real food, of course, which we covered in today's video, but then you have other things like sleep and movement, etc., that can help you just kind of focus on the things that really matter from a health perspective, because humans are animals, and a lot of us don't like to really think about that or admit that. Humans are animals. We are actually the most vicious, violent creature in nature ever observed. We've killed more of our own species than any other species ever observed in the wild, right, in nature. That's a very sobering, startling, upsetting fact, but it is the reality. And when we ignore biology, when we ignore our past, we get fat and sick and discontent and unhappy. And that's what I'm trying to do with the Ancestral Mind brand, is to prevent that and to open your eyes to understanding this human animal, right? For you, for me, we all are humans. And so we have a lot of the same things, most of the same things apply to all of us and how we eat, etc. And then there are subtle differences in things that we might respond to better or worse to, and ways we want to live our life, etc. Okay? But you can't make those decisions until you understand the foundation. And the foundation is based on biology. All right, this is Wild CEO. Thanks for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe.